On the issue of marijuana decriminalization, I like to take a little bit of a different tact. I know that a lot of other people in the liberty movement, and certainly so many even outside of it who talk about this topic and the need for it, focus on the potential benefits, the health benefits and otherwise of decriminalization, of allowing people to use it. That's not a tact I'm going to take for a very important reason. Because what trap we can fall into with that discussion is a trap of accepting a narrative or a belief or a worldview that says that government legitimately has the right to override our decisions and decide what we can and can't do. That it ultimately is government that is the arbiter of these things, and that what we're allowed to do is simply whatever government will allow us to do, which in turn is only going to be the good things, and that we need to prove that something is good to get permission from government to do that. And I think as a libertarian, that's completely upside down. I don't need to accept anything good about marijuana usage or potential benefits, much as there may be, and I think that's an important conversation to have for different reasons, and to understand that those people who are in power, who are pulling the levers of power, don't know what they're doing. They're making bad decisions that ultimately cause people harm. But from my perspective is the recognition, and I think I want to have the recognition and call it out, that those people should never have that power. They don't legitimately hold that power, because we there's no way we can invest that power in them, because I don't have the power to decide what you can put into your body. You don't have the power to decide for me. So how can either one of us vest that into government to go and make the decision for someone else? We can't. It's illegitimate. And so we've got to divorce this notion of what can be criminalized and what can be regulated from the idea of something being good or beneficial. Though it may be good and may be beneficial, or something may be harmful and totally, it could be totally harmful to your body and have all kind of awful side effects and really nothing good, but it should still never be criminalized, because it has its own negative consequences, and yet we don't want to exacerbate those consequences and create greater harm to the people who've already made this mistake, who are already suffering the consequences of it. We don't want to exacerbate that with government penalties. We want to make it as easy as possible for those people to come out of that. But truly, we never really know what the pros and cons of any one of these things are. The central agencies, bureaucrats, magistrates and politicians, legislators, none of them have the insight to be the final arbiters of these questions, and they shouldn't ever have this trust, because they are simply doomed to get it wrong. They will never have the information, and they will constantly make mistakes. Again, when we talk about the benefits of cannabis, this is something where we have a great example of it, where sick people with all different kinds of ailments are unable to get the medicine that they need, because long ago a bunch of bureaucrats decided that this was harmful and it needed to be stopped, and they launched a propaganda campaign. But bigger than that was the acceptance by the public of the idea that because this is bad, we need to ban it, we need to prohibit it, we need to make it illegal, and we need to go after it. And the acceptance of that idea is what needs to be broken down. And obviously, that is something that goes beyond this particular topic of decriminalizing this one act, and is really something, a broader concept that we as believers in liberty need to address and always be consistent on. Again, it's not necessarily about making an argument that something is good, though there may be reasons to bring that up and have those discussions. At the end of the day, it has to be the recognition that prohibition is always harmful. It exacerbates whatever is wrong with these things, and it causes undue harm to people who maybe have made mistakes, if they even are mistakes, or they create harm where harm doesn't have to occur. But no matter what, it is damaging people's lives, it is infringing upon their liberty and accomplishing really nothing positive. And that's the record of history. And that goes beyond not even just cannabis or drugs in general, but all sorts of activities and actions that do not violate another individual's basic natural rights. So this is part of the reason why we should always be pushing relentlessly for decriminalization of this and other things. Obviously, there's more political momentum currently for marijuana decriminalization. We've seen it across the country, and the majority of states now have some form of it. We here in Florida have medicinal marijuana, but it's got to go further, and there needs to be a recognition. And again, not the sort of thing that we've already seen where it gets legalized, but you also have this sort of regulation that preserves the black market. We don't want to do that. We want to recognize the individual's right. If they want to grow a plant, grow the plant. That should always be a right, and no one should ever go to prison for that. If you want to take that plant and produce something that you can consume in one form or another, you should be free to do that. None of those actions violate anyone's rights. If you want to sell that to someone else who wants to use it, you haven't violated anyone's rights. If you want to consume it yourself, you haven't violated anyone's rights. And that's got to be the barometer for us. And that's why we need to stand for it. And again, this is an example of where there is the political will beyond our movement, but it's a stepping stone, and it's part where we need to give this piece of the conversation, because this is what's missing, that it doesn't matter whether it's right, whether it's good for you or not. It matters your freedom and the negative consequences that come from prohibition. This is the message that we should be pushing, and why it's so important, and it's not something we should step back on or put it on the back burner. There may be other issues that may be more pressing at one time or another, but we should never cede ground on this issue or accept kind of the status quo. We should always be courageous and outspoken on it, and uncompromising on the recognition that this has to do with individual liberty, and that individual liberty needs to be respected. The only path to peace and prosperity in our society is the respect for individual liberty, and that extends to this area of not just cannabis, but other drug use as well. Thank you.